So, hi everyone. This is Nathalie from Les GreatCreators. I'm very happy to see you tonight. So, I'm receiving Micheal tonight as a guest, and I will give you a little introduction about Micheal. So, Micheal is saying that he's a medical intuitive by trade. And as well, he specializes in animal and in child communication, both, and psychometry, so that he will have to explain us what it is, because I don't know what it is. And he's working professionally in the metaphysical field since the age of 15. And he also have worked with a wide variety of clientele, from, like he said, ambassadors to street vendors. So that's what he said to me. And he primarily worked off of intuition, empathy, and basic numerology. So without any waiting, welcome, Micheal.
So yeah, if you like, I can give a quick description. So psychometry is basically where you touch an object or anything that someone else has touched, an article of clothing, even a picture direct connects me. And basically what it does is it draws me to that person specifically. So they could be in another country, and as long as I have an item of theirs or an image, I can connect with them. That's what psychometry is. I actually learned that when I was, before I even got into the metaphysical field, when I was like 13, 12. I used to, I left home at a young age. And so I used to go to this coffee shop all the time in Lethbridge, Alberta, and found out I would be sitting at a table, and the waitresses, because I'd always come in at the same time every night, and sometimes the girls would be busy and they'd leave the silverware, and all of a sudden I would get impressions. And so after like a few months, they saw that I was getting connected to people that I hadn't met, because they'd leave before I got in. And so they would test me every once in a while. So they'd leave silverware out, and then we realized that you could connect with others through that object. So that's how kind of like that started, just, trial and error, that sort of thing.
Oh, wow. So that must be very, when you first do this, how were you feeling? Like when it first happened, I mean, inside, were you like very impressed, or were you afraid, or what was the feeling you had?
I left home at such a young age that I didn't have a lot of fear, but I didn't understand people. So it was actually a direct link to me to understand, why people behaved the way they did, because I didn't really understand. I didn't have like a nuclear family sort of scope to look through. Like, not much of my life was considered, normal or average. So I learned quickly through my youth, and found it was a way to connect to people that in a way that I couldn't before. And so, yeah, psychometry is sort of, one thing. Numerology, I find everything has sort of a basic current to it. So I'm self-taught, basically 1 through 9, that's it, and I've even done courses, which I was reluctant to do, but in my third, people were so interested in what I did that I actually started giving intuitive courses. But I always believe that people should work off the premises of what the way that they were conditioned, how they were built in life, and that's how we tune into each other. And right now we live in such a time where everyone is so disconnected, from having the mask covering our faces to, things happening economically, the diversities, and everything's right now is people are kind of cut off from each other. So we need people really to start putting their sensors out and trying to feel our neighbor and learn from them and their differences, rather than fearing something that's not one of us, which
Yes.
seems to be a political quota right now. So everything is not exactly that quota.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it started. I was always, my family was very spiritual, in certain ways, but I was just natural with it. My mom and I could walk into any room and pick up things about people. And
Yes,
so
talking about this, Micheal, just like you said, your mother was spiritual, and you were kind of in this, kind of, I mean, it's not like every family that are spiritual. So it was very good for you, because if you are a sensitive, an empath, that's a pretty good place to be in a spiritual family. But I wanted to know, like, can you explain to us like a little bit about where you were raised and how it was in your family, just to like put the base on who you are, Micheal, a little bit. I mean, you can give details or not, but just to show
Okay.
us like how it became, like how did you knew that you had those abilities? Did your mom help you, your dad, or your relative? Just
Survival.
explain like the
It was primarily based on survival. My mother was, a single mom, and in my younger years, she tended to involve herself with very violent men. And so, it was very much a role of survival instinct, a lot of our lives. So it's not exactly what you call a Disney upbringing, but it incorporated it. So it incorporated those skills in me. So when I left home at the age of 11, I was able to sense things out. I was able to pick things up. It was actually, so I'm a firm believer that only through adversity, if we accept and we sit in our pain and we sit in our anger, or we sit in our jealousy, if we sit in our joy and we sit in our sadness, then it becomes a part of us. It's when we deny things about ourselves and our experiences that it separates from who we are as a species, as connected. We're not just connected through the screen right now. That we're connected, energetically. We're connected to the space around us, the smells, the sensations, and those frequencies vibrate throughout everything around us. It permeates us. And it wasn't exactly, the Brady Bunch childhood, but I was changing legislation by the age of 11, and 12. And I was an active, because back then being gay was considered a mental illness, so I was fighting, these perceptions,
yes.
and then gifted and being openly gay. I never hid it. I never talked about it, but I never hid it. And so it was a part of my development. And that's where, when we take ownership, and this is always my sort of like lesson to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're an ambassador, or you're a drug dealer, or you're a prostitute, or you're a vendor, or you're a business owner. When you sit in your stuff, when you sit in your pain and your joy and your anger and all those things, and you allow that to move through you, and that's how we let go of it, so we don't have all of this conditioning hanging on to us. And a lot of people right now, they're stuck in their pain and in their fear and in their anger and their envy, and then all those things, and that's
Is
what's
that
keeping.
what you could call like being in balance with the masculine and feminine side of you, and also being in balance with the totality of your human being, as like in balance with your spirit, with your body, with your, is that what you?
Absolutely. Well, because my sexuality wasn't a thing for me. It was a thing for other people. Because I was raised in a country gospel family. My mother was in the rodeo. She had 4 boys. I was the only gay son, So it was that adversity that made me. It's what gave me the strength to walk through the things that I've walked through. And until people understand that this is an inherently a gift, this adversity, this is like an advanced course, and we're living in a time where we need to be able to sit in those things. So for me, it was sort of a do or die thing. It wasn't an option. I would have been a statistic if I would have stayed in my family. But it's given me the ability to see people, even people that have been unkind to me, with compassion, and to understand that's their shit. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
It's okay. It's
That's
not
their
for
stuff,
children. Not that.
right? But it's not my stuff. When people hang on to their illusions, to their greed, to their anger, it's not mine to take. And when I go on, when I move on physically from, the town I'm in, or the country I'm in, or the province I'm in, then that stays with them. That doesn't go with me. When I move on from this life, that doesn't stay with me. That stays with them, and they have to work that out. That's not my stuff. And so when we realize that when stuff is other people's and not ours, we get along so much better. And to be honest with you, I've lived on reservations. I'm not native, but I loved the native traditions. I loved sitting with the elders, that the women were the leaders and the men were the hunters, and that the two spirited were honored, because they both had the masculine and the feminine. And that's not to do with sexuality necessarily, but it's to do with encompassing the yin and the yang, the balance, the
The
sun
balance.
and moon or night, because we cannot define the stars in all its beauty unless we have darkness. We need
Exactly.
order to shape ourselves. But people get stuck in, oh my God, I'm the victim in this. And oh my God, like, what about my money? What about my things? What about my popularity? What about my, makeup and my clothes? And we forget that those things don't go with us. So people are basically really valuing things that have no longevity. Do you
Yes.
see?
Yes.
And
Really.
so, that's why, I met you through the, through Glorious and Free, but I've been here for a year and a half. I would have never thought I would have, joined such groups. I wouldn't, but my experiences led me to each of them. And that's the beauty. Unless you take a risk, unless you cry those tears, unless you bleed, and let that pain release itself, you don't grow from it. You become
Yes.
stagnant, and you're
I
in the same town with the same crap and the same people doing the same crap stuff. But
I
you're just making
totally agree.
amen.
It's like, I have this image all in my head. It's like, when you have this little seed, okay, it's a seed and it's in a little bag. But if you want it to be the flower or the carrot or the true cell, it's in the seed, but you have to put it in the earth. So it has to be in the dark, and
Yeah.
then after it has to grow from the dark and then see the sun again and being, so that's what we all are
Do you
doing, I think.
Do you remember back in the day when we lived in like little towns, and the streets weren't always freshly paved and everything was, but you would see the sidewalk and it cracked and there'd be one blade of grass sticking out, and
Yes.
that is life. Life will seek out light. It does, and anything that stays in that shadow and that darkness, only fades eventually. It becomes self-absorbed. It becomes parasitical. Just watch the news.
And how, Micheal, how did you discover, just like, when you kind of point your little eye and saw the light, or I don't know how to say it, but when you discover yourself more, I mean, when was
when I
this
left
time when you
when I
you
left at 11, because I knew I'd be, I wasn't even hit puberty yet, but I knew if I didn't leave my home that I would be a statistic. I would be, death would know me, or I would become, the abuser, like like, so I knew that I didn't want to change in that way. And so I
so you
literally,
already have, at 11, you were
yeah,
already like connected to your spirits and like knew like who you
out of
were, like kind of
out of necessity. I didn't realize, I knew I was different, for different reasons, but my gifts started just surfacing at a young age, and people are like, there's something about you. Like, so I would go in I go into this coffee shop at like 12 because I had nowhere to go. Like, so I would go to these coffee shops every night because it was like a family, in Lethbridge, Alberta, and they would leave out a spoon or a fork or a plate, and they'd be like, tell me about the person sat there. And they would get
wow.
giddy every time I come in. They would do that, and then they buy me coffee because I didn't have a lot of money. So, and that's how it started. But for me, it was out of necessity. So sometimes we have to step out of our little Lego boxes, our houses, and away from our technology, and we have to experience, as painful as it is, as scary as it can be. Because let me tell you, I mean, not just the quarantine and all this stuff, but I've had to step into some places where it was scary. And I'm glad I did, because I've touched lives along the way, and they've touched mine. And
Mm.
people I've never met in a million years, I wouldn't have stopped to, unless they were coming and having a session with me, I wouldn't have stopped to even, just because I've always done my own thing, not that they weren't interesting, but strength comes in the most beautiful, and sometimes fragile ways if we just stop and take a look. That's the
Yes.
thing. We got to stop and take a look. Do you ever notice it's always most beautiful at night when it's cold? The air is clearer, the stars are brighter. That's the thing. Sometimes beauty requires pain. And I'm not
Yes,
talking
I
about
understand.
surgery.
It's
I'm
kind of a way, like us women, when we have a child, okay, so we give birth to the child, it hurts, but is it bad? It's not. It's the way it is. It hurts. It has to hurt to give birth to the child. So do you think in a way like that's
Very
the
much.
female way to explain this? But as
Well,
a male, I mean, you have to give birth to some part of you sometimes, so it hurts, you know?
well, and that's why we get like workaholics, like especially, more like 30, 40 years ago, where men were they were just bill payers, or they were the hunter. They were that like, whoosh, go for the kill. And so they didn't exercise, that aspect. But I mean, same with women though. Women can be, they need the masculine as well. They need to have that being decisive in what it is that they want and going for it, and having their expectation high, and that, and what they do and what they want, and that other people's opinions don't matter to them. So it works both ways. It's just our society is just slowly catching up now, so yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't on.
No, it's okay. It's perfect. Hey, thank you, Michael. So, do you have something to say to the audience that will watch the show, like to help them? I mean, in those times that we are living right now, because we are rebuilding everything, so that hurts. We have to go on this process to see everything crumble, to rebuild, or even the inside, because everything is happening so fast. So we have to really watch what's going on and be centered. And what could you say to everybody who needs kind of a little bit of something to help inside, to hold on to it?
And I kind of relate this time, which we've spoken briefly, kind of, the patterns and the nature of the beast right now is very much World War II Stasi Germany, like where it's, you must be like everyone else. And if they're not like you, then you got to report them. And then you have to be like this and look like this. My thing is right now, the seeds of destruction always hold, evil always holds the seeds of its own destruction. So this will wear itself out eventually. But in order to participate in this change, these changes that are occurring, this flow, these rivers, one must stand in it. That means this is what it is. It is really sucky, but the way to get through it is be in it. This is what it is. Are you okay with this? Like, but and to relax yourself as these ebbs and flows of the waters go back and forth. And sometimes, it feels like a hurricane, and it breaks us, and it bends us. But to be standing in that and being like, okay, this is what it is. What do I do next? And know that this is only temporary. Every season, changes into another. And we've had tyrants before, and we've had, changes before, and we've had extinctions before, and threats of extinction. This is just a part of that. And the best way to deal with it is to stand in it. Otherwise, that current thrashes you around, and it just becomes more chaotic, and then it just systematically passes down to the next and to the next, and generationally. So what I say is just be in this moment. It is what it is, and there is sort of a race right now. But once you stand in that and you sort of accept the terms of what the circumstances are, it allows us to be flexible and to grow from it, because our growth isn't dependent on how much money we have, or what our neighbor is doing, or if we've any, or if we have a big house, or if we're renting, that has nothing to do with it. It's what we do with the experience and how we face that adversity. So like when I left home at 11, for a short period of time, I was thrown into foster care because my mom was embarrassed that I left home. And so I started changing the care system for Aboriginal kids. I became an advocate, not even a gay, like just an advocate for Aboriginal kids, because the abuse and systematic abuse was horrible. But that was the opportunity that was led to me. And so I walk that truth. It's not something I just preach. I'm walking it today. So just be in the moment and be in what it is, and it will wear itself out, and new things come from that. But understand it's only momentarily, but you have the now to grow and shift and change with it. Great leaders and heroes are not born. That's an elitist mentality. We are created from circumstance. And when we realize that we are the hero of our stories and that we are the change that we require,
we are the ones that we were looking for,
the whole time, girl. The whole
That's this. Wow, that's a good message. Thank you, Micheal.